Welcome to Retail Untangled. My name is Amie Larter, and this is the podcast where we speak to retail industry experts and find out business hacks that help them succeed. You won't find these gems anywhere else, and we have some superb stories from the coalface, as well as helicopter insights from retail industry leaders. There's no shortage of AI ambition in Asia-Pacific retail right now. Boardrooms are full of it, conference stages are full of it, but walk into the back end of most retail operations, the ERP, the warehouse management system, the supply chain, and what you often find is a patchwork of disconnected systems, manual workarounds, and data that doesn't talk to itself, let alone to an AI model. The uncomfortable truth is that most retailers have been so focused on what AI can do for the customer experience that they've underestimated what it needs from the operation to actually work. And the gap between AI as a pilot project and AI as a genuine operational capability is where a lot of retailers are quietly getting stuck. Today, on Retail Untangled, I'm joined by Michael Guantiero, Vice President and Head of Solution Consulting for Asia Pacific, Japan and India at Infor, one of the enterprise platforms sitting at the heart of retail operations across the region. Michael works with retailers at the coalface of this transformation, and he's got a clear view of who is making it work and why. Welcome to Retail Untangled, Michael.
Thank you very much for having me.
So the AI conversation in retail has been dominated by the customer-facing side, that personalisation, chatbots, recommendations, but you work on the operational backbone, right? So what's the AI opportunity that retailers in this region are consistently missing?
Yeah. So the value is not so much in the chatbots. It is from a sort of a customer experience perspective and that part of it. But the daily operational decisions is really what keeps the business moving. So that's where we see the value comes in how we help improve the operational aspects and connect the information flow behind the scenes. So, and that is a bit more like shortening the time between the signals and to the action that needs to be taken to help improve the overall experience behind the scenes.
This makes sense. And so AI readiness, you would think it would be sort of a given by now. We've been hearing, it's been a buzzword for 2-3 years. It's very much been the top of conversation. So what does the average mid to large retailer in APAC actually look like when you get under the hood? And where are people sort of falling down?
All right. So we see pockets of AI, right? But disconnected systems and uneven data makes it a little bit difficult to kind of bring it together. So most have pockets of AI capability, but because of these disconnected systems, it's hard to really get the efficiency out of it that companies are looking for, right? So teams can see the issue, but they can't really act fast on it to get to where they need to be. So that's the operational challenge that companies are kind of facing today.
That makes sense. And tapping into that data piece, data fragmentation in retail, we've been also talking about that for years, and yet ERP, WMS, supply chain and finance are still operating as separate islands, silos in most businesses. Is it actually getting better, or are we just getting better at talking about it, which is scary? And what does it realistically take to fix without a huge transformation project?
Yes, that's a very good point. It's improving. It's absolutely improving.
Okay, this is good news.
It's improving, but it's just not improving fast enough. And it comes down to those challenges that I mentioned that we have in the back end. So you don't need a rip and replace, but it's about how quickly can we identify areas where we can connect the highest value data points and workflows to really get some significant outcomes and productivity gains, because that's really where we want companies to get to.
Yeah.
So that's the important thing. So we want to turn the complex into something visible, something manageable, and something that can be repeated and that can be scaled without feeling you have to do open heart surgery sort of thing on systems.
Yes, that's for the best. And so when it comes to forecasting and replenishment, it's probably where AI has the clearest operational ROI case in retail, and yet overstock and stockouts remain chronic problems. I've personally been a customer where this has been an issue recently, and it is so frustrating. What are the retailers who are genuinely solving this doing differently at the systems and data level? And what does that improvement actually look like in commercial terms?
Yes, and that is a very good point. It's about cleaner and more connected data. So typically, historically, you would say the customer experience and the demand picture have always been separate from the replenishment aspects of it.
Mhm.
Now, with the pace of technology and AI, we're bringing that picture together, which means data needs to be more aligned, so we can optimize what actually happens in that flow. So we want to make sure we embed the AI into the replenishment and planning, so those two ends can talk to each other, from the demand signals that you get into the replenishment, and how quickly we can act and execute on these things, and not as two separate siloed functions that typically was the pattern in the past.
And so warehouse productivity is under enormous pressure right now: labor costs, speed expectations, omni-channel complexity. Where is AI making the most tangible difference inside the four walls? And what's the honest, prerequisite, I suppose, a retailer needs to have in place before AI in the warehouse actually delivers on its promise?
Yes. So AI prioritizes work and surfaces exceptions.
Yeah.
Right. And then coming back to the previous question is, how quickly can we act on these things?
Uh-huh.
We only see these things in the foundational layer, but we need to have a strong foundation, clean inventory, consistent processes that are well connected, so we can actually act on these more quickly. So I say the honest prerequisite is we want to have clean and operational data, enough process discipline to be able to actually trust the outputs that we get, so things can happen in a sort of more automated and autonomous way. Because today, there are still a lot of manual human checkpoints, which is not a bad thing. Governance is still a massive piece in this whole world of autonomy.
And I suppose where retailers are at today as well, it makes a lot of sense, because we're not at that point where all the data's in place, we're using the right systems.
Correct. And AI will not fix that on its own.
Yeah.
Right. There was this initial perception is we'll dump everything into, a data lake or data warehouse, and AI will figure it all out. What AI does not know is the context and the dependencies that you have in your overall supply chain process to make sense of it,
Yeah.
in a proper way, so you can execute accordingly. So dumping it into one big hole and hope AI does it all is not the way to go.
I could quite imagine not. This takes us to our next question: agentic AI. It's getting a lot of airtime, but where in the supply chain or fulfillment operation is it actually delivering measurable change right now? And what does that mean for the teams running it in day to day?
So agentic AI senses, and it kind of decides and acts based on the tools it already has available. And that comes back to the challenge of, is data and information siloed, or is it accessible to make sort of decisions where there are a lot of dependencies involved? So can we sense what's happening, and can we decide the next step? And how does that flow through the existing systems? Right. So you can say, we need to be able to leverage agentic as a true, intelligent, connected worker to what is happening in the system. So in retail, it only really works if it's grounded in trusted data and clear business rules, right? So every decision that touches inventory margin, fulfillment, and the customer experience has to be fully connected.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge that the companies are struggling with today. But this is what we're actually helping to get more in place for customers. That needs to be a proper understanding of the industry context and the overall workflow within the company.
Excellent. And what does a retailer in APAC look like when they've genuinely cracked that operational AI execution? And what are the 2 or 3 things they've done that most of their competitors would not have?
Yes, so I would say the three things to get right is to get the basics right, earn the trust of the user, because nobody's going to trust the AI to run the operation without having tested the governance, the decisions, and all that. So there needs to be a process put in place.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want them to either. It's so
Correct.
important. Yeah.
Correct. Because eventually we want to make sure we embed these AI decisions into everyday decisions to help facilitate the operations. We have scenarios we're working with customers through is, what can happen in a company before people come to work to facilitate information flow that has happened overnight in their supply chain or in the business, in their demand overall, to just come and validate on a supervisory level. You can say it's the governance structure that actually helps facilitate and just approve things that have already been taken care of by the agentic workflow. That's where we need to get to.
Are we nearly there in many instances?
I would say we are getting there. And the challenge that some companies are doing is they're running a pilot, but the pilot is not necessarily representative of what the real world looks like. So it's about identifying use cases that truly that represents how the business runs, something that is scalable. Because if you always need to manage things with human intervention, or you don't trust the outcomes it gets to, then it will never go into full production mode.
Yeah.
So we always talk to companies about identifying the highest value workflows where you see the highest impact. Make sure we actually test that through, make sure it adds value to it, and then release it. But to do that, you got to have a governance structure in place. What happens if the AI hallucinates, if it gets stuck too many, or if you deal with everything on exception? Well, too many exceptions probably tells you that workflow has issues, right? It's not relevant enough. And you can't just let AI try to figure out what needs to happen in there. So it's about creating structure and a proper flow that actually truly drives productivity and efficiency into the high value processes in each company.
And for those retailers that are getting that piece right, what is the impact from a consumer perspective or customer perspective?
Well, the impact from a consumer perspective is always higher service levels. We measure everything on the customer experience in the service level. When you walk into a store today and you want to buy a dress or a blouse, if they don't have it in the store, your next question is, do you have it in another store you can transfer? If a store would be telling you today, oh, I cannot see that, you would look at them as like, that's strange.
That's exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, well, there you go, right? So this comes together with what happens in the back end of the system. So supply chain systems of today and tomorrow need to be even more connected in there. And coming back to the discussions around the demand patterns, can we anticipate what is happening? Because everything in the retail supply chain, most of it is a push supply chain, which means assortments are pushed to stores, but we also need to track how fast things are selling. If certain things are selling faster than others, are we looking at the back end on optimizing our distribution and replenishment ahead of what the customer is asking, or are we waiting for the customer to experience a stock out?
Yeah.
So we can optimize that experience, and that's the service level we are looking to improve.
And I also think it's the service level that customers are expecting now.
Expectations are higher every day.
They're getting higher than ever before. And I think it really has an impact big time when you're not pushing to be at that level.
Yeah. And we work also with big brands that do their own manufacturing and distribution and retail. So the demand on that level is the supply chain is connected all the way to the manufacturing floor, which factories are producing it, which warehouse locations do we have stock available, and to make sure we can expedite the distribution if the demand pattern changes. So sensing changes in demand, if something is selling faster and slower, to make sure we always optimize for the consumer experience and the service level.
Makes sense. Now, you're across Japan, India, Southeast Asia, Australia, some very different retail markets there. What's the one thing you believe about where this is all heading that the industry isn't ready to hear yet? A little bit of your insight there.
Not ready to hear yet. I think everybody's expecting things to happen a lot faster. I mean, I think these expectations of increased service levels, we've been talking about them from a technology standpoint for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
There's nothing new about that. I think the evolution is the agentic era is bringing this to life more easily, and it's creating new business models.
And faster too, probably.
And faster too than ever anticipated. And we're still figuring out what are these new business models? What is the new retail model that brings this to life? Because now we feel we can offer more to the consumer. It gives us more flexibility on the downstream and upstream processes that that can handle more things.
That's awesome. And I suppose it's also really widening the gap, because if you've got people playing up here and testing and trialing and getting or cracking this type of operational excellence, so to speak, the people that aren't are falling further behind quite quickly, you'd think, with in this agentic era.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at technology in the past, initiatives, they would take months or years to drive. Today, the expectation is you identify initiatives and you test and deploy things in a matter of weeks. So if anything, these initiatives in the agentic era are moving a lot faster. And our job is to make sure that companies can adopt these technologies fast enough without being data scientists, without having, very technically skilled people to actually identify and run these initiatives. So I think that's the expectation today.
Excellent. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Retail Untangled, and a big thank you to Michael from Infor for joining me live from NRF APAC. To be the first to know when the next episode lands, like and follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts.